The theme of today's lesson is the emergence of philosophy and philosophy as a science and art. Plan. First, introduction. Second, what is philosophy? Third, history of the term. Fourth, section of philosophy. Fifth, philosophy as a science. Philosophy as art. Conclusion and references. So let's start. Introduction. Today we will talk about philosophy. We will tell the history and sections of the origin of the term philosophy. We prove that philosophy is used as a science and an art, and we will give detailed information about the science of philosophy. Question is, what is philosophy? Quite literally, the term philosophy means love of wisdom. The history of the term philosophy. The emergence of philosophy and the formation of its subject. The word philosophy is of ancient Greek origin. It is formed from two Greek words, phileo love and sophia wisdom, which means love of wisdom. This term is already found in the ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Philosophy originated in ancient times in the first-class societies of ancient Egypt, Babylonia, India, and China, but it reached its greatest prosperity at the first stage in the ancient world in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Stages of ancient philosophy. First stage of philosophy until Socrates. Second, classic stage. Third, Roman Hellenistic stage. Sections of philosophy can be divided into four groups actually. First, general philosophy, philosophy of means of knowledge, theoretical and practical philosophy, philosophy as a science. The term of the philosophy origin is associated with the ancient cultural tradition in which defended knowledge and understanding of primary causes and beginning of all things. Philosophy is one of the oldest areas of knowledge and spiritual culture, originating in the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ in India, China, ancient Greece. It became a form of that interested people in all subsequent centuries. The vocation of philosophers became the search for answers to questions and the very formulation of questions related the world view. Understanding these issues is vital for people. This is especially noticeable in times of change with their complex interweaving of problems after all.
Theme, subject, functions, and purpose of philosophy. Philosophy means the love of wisdom. It is a set of beliefs relating to a particular field, a system of values by which one lives or works. Philosophy helps individuals address the problems that confront them through the use of critical thinking, logical analysis, and reflective appraisal. The term philosophy comes from the Greek language. It consists of two words, philia and sophia. Philia, which means love, and sophia is wisdom. A brief etymological interpretation sounds like love of wisdom. The first person who used this word was Pythagoras. He didn't dare to call himself as a wise man. In his view, it's only God is wise, there's only God's wisdom. So here is the first symbol of wisdom, Iris. Iris, the rainbow as a bridge between earth people and sky gods. For the ancient Greek philosophers, philosophy was not only a form of knowledge, learning, but also a form of life, existence, and even the first form of way of life. Philosophy is the study of the nature and meaning of the universe and of human life, says Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. Philosophy is a systematic and a comprehensive study of truths about life, about the universe, and everything including events, relationship, and experience. And here we can see the questions addressed about the philosophy. What constitutes truths? Who are the people? What is the role of human beings on this earth? What relationship exists between mind and matter? History of philosophy. So, philosophy was found firstly by mathematics. Mathematics was the first and split off very early in the game. Science was the second, splitting off much later. To modern philosophy is left whatever question these two disciplines cannot solve, but also theoretical questions at their springs and conceptual questions at their foundations. Philosophy, of course, is best known for the first class of questions, which includes some of the most difficult and important questions, such as there is a God, how one can know anything at all, and how a person ought to live. Socrates, a Greek philosopher, used the term philosophy as an equivalent to the search for wisdom. Also, the term wisdom, used as a general term for describing the intellectual probing of any idea. The term philosophy is taken from the Greek word, as we said before. The origin of philosophy came from Miletus, where philosophy originated. Philosophy originated in the following three centers of the ancient civilization in ancient Greece, India, and China, what happened almost simultaneously in the middle of the first millennium before Christ. Thales, the first acclaimed philosopher, he wandered earlier than Pythagoras, also a philosopher in 6th century. The origin of philosophy is wonder. Philosophy starts with wonder, that's why it's the cause of philosophy. Thales was the first man who questioned or wondered. Subject of philosophy are the extremely general issues of being, the world as a whole entity, the role of the human in it, as well as the universal regulations of being thinking. Here we can see the branches of philosophy. Branches of philosophy. Metaphysics addresses the ultimate nature of reality, what is real and exists. Epistemology examines the nature of knowledge. Logic focuses on the examination of ideas in an orderly, systematic way and how ideas relate to each other. Axiology examines the nature of values. Ethics concerned with issues of right and wrong, responsibility, and standards of conduct. Aesthetics studies the nature of beauty and art. And functions of philosophy. The ideological functions of philosophy is a definition of the exploratory and applied orientations of man in particular and of mankind in general by exploring the world outlook. That is, it is a set of criteria for assessing the perception of the world by man and culture, created by him as a community. The epistemological function of philosophy is a scientifically correct interpretation of the surrounding reality in its authentic knowledge. It's responsible for the definition of scientific, extra-scientific, and non-existent, that is, carries out an expert assessment of knowledge. The methodological function of control the development and verification of the ways in which philosophy achieves its goals and research. She develops the methods and approaches used in each philosophical study as well as evaluates and approves them. Information communicative. This function controls the transmission and content of the transmitted data between any agents involved in its process. That is, spreads knowledge between different disciplines both inside and outside of philosophy, supporting cooperation between other sciences and their disciplines. The value orientation function is specific and adjacent for a number of disciplines, among them axiology, ethics, and aesthetics, and performs the role of evaluation activity on various criteria of a wide range of phenomena. A critical function evaluates the phenomenon or process and compares it with the philosophy's opinion, that is, as the name implies, criticizes draws conclusions, and gives a conclusion. The expert evaluation of philosophy is broader than in other sciences and is guided by various criteria, which for some other disciplines do not make sense. The integrating function is that philosophy accumulates, complies, and accumulates knowledge, including them its concepts that it integrates. In cooperation with other functions described above, it disseminates knowledge, hypotheses, and theories in the scientific community. The ideological function deals with the study, classification, and evaluation of the systems of views and opinions of various and social groups. That is, this function is philosophy, explores ideology. It's easy to understand that it's closely related to social disciplines, for example, sociology, prognostic is a function of philosophy that provides predictions based on known data. Models and forecasts made with this function wider and better integrate into both culture and scientific knowledge than other theoretical constructs. The design function of philosophy is responsible for the creation of ideas, systems of ideas, and images. It's very similar to the previous one. In fact, they act as a couple, interacting in the process of theoretical forecasting, design, and modeling. The educational function aims to influence the formation of the views of the individual and his groups. One of the most ancient functions has become apparent since the very emergence of philosophizing, which originally presupposed instruction the meaningful and understood. Thus, in ancient times, scientific knowledge spread for understandable reasons. The functions of philosophy come from its disciplines and are closely related to the object of each particular direction, but at the same time have their unique specifiers. Considering them, it's necessary to take into account the above. The real purpose of philosophy, beyond the love of wisdom, is art of living a good life. Goals of philosophy. Wisdom is the main goal of philosophy, discovering the nature of truth and the nature of knowledge. It researches for what is basis value and importance in life, examining the relationship between individuals and the society as well as humanity and nature. Importance of philosophy in our life. People can clarify what they are believing for. We can be stimulated to think of ultimate question. Philosophy promises us better understanding of ourselves and our lives. The study of philosophy enables us to think carefully and clearly about important issues. Studying philosophy sharpens our analytical abilities, enabling to identify and evaluate the strengths and weaknesses in any position. It honors your ability to construct and articulate cogent arguments of your own. Purposes of philosophy. The main purpose and the real purpose of philosophy, beyond the love of wisdom, is the art of living a good life. Sharon Lebel writes, "True philosophy doesn't involve exotic rituals, mysterious liturgy, or quaint beliefs, nor is it just abstract theorizing and analysis. It's of course the love of wisdom. It is the art of living a good life. The life of wisdom is meant to stir us in an energetic and cheerful way." Purpose of philosophy. There we can say that enables us to understand ourselves better, helps us to understand others and our fellow men, helps us understand other ways of thinking, helps us understand the world and our place and role in it, helps us understand the significance, meaning, value, and finality of human life, helps us to know and understand God and His nature, essence, activities, and attributes. And here to conclude our theme, And a final reason for studying philosophy is that for all of the pains and difficulties associated with it, the pursuit and acquisition of knowledge is enjoyable. To be sure, it is a refined enjoyment, and it's often hard to see from the outside what the appeal is. But once you become immersed in it, it carries its own immediate rewards, and it's difficult to resist becoming addicted to it. Amongst many pleasures experienced, it's claimed by philosophers that none of them hold a candle to the pleasures of the mind, the sheer pleasure of studying and investigating, and sometimes even understanding.
Being is a philosophical category, understanding of being in ancient times. Plan. Categories of being in philosophy. Notion of being, types of being, the problem of the essence of being as a human being, phenomenon of non-being, ontology and category of being, basic forms of being. Being is a philosophical category that fixes the existence and interrelation of the objects and phenomena. The very first definitions emerged in ancient Greece in the course of setting up the boundaries of the philosophic knowledge. Etymologically, it has a reference with the verb to be and exist. It means that everything in the world has the status of being. Being is the initial notion related to the starting point of any contemplation on a human and his world. It gets to the point of being concrete and universal exclusively through the interactions with such philosophic categories like matter, consciousness, motion, space, time, system, determinism. The main forms of being. Materialistic. It provides for the perception of the objective reality, the existence of which is absolutely independent. Idealistic, being of the secondary nature, civilization. The main types of being, the nature of substance, human nature, spirituality. Historically, the basis of human activity and life is the object of nature and natural processes. The first nature, which appeared before mankind, lives outside the consciousness of people and independently. It covers the seas, oceans, forests, air, land, and so on. The man is a powerful and wide-ranging influence on the nature of the earth. Human nature is divided into two. Man lives as a living, real person. Moreover, the natural precondition for human existence is the survival of his body. That is, man is first of all a man made of bones and flesh. Then the human body is a part of nature. Having a body makes a person a limited, transient soul. Spiritual being includes the processes of consciousness and unconsciousness. Spiritual being can be conditionally divided into two main groups: the spiritual life of individuals, which is inseparable from their life, and living outside the person, in other words, objectified spiritually. The formation of philosophy began with the study of the problem of being. Being is the broadest and most abstract concept, meaning presence, existence. At present, there is no single point of view in world philosophy on the question of what being is, but the most common point of view is that being is a philosophical category that denotes the existence of an objective reality independent of consciousness, the cosmos, nature, and man. For the first time, the concept of being as a specific category to denote existing reality was used by the ancient Greek thinker Parmenides. According to Parmenides, being exists. It is continuous, homogeneous, and completely motionless. Plato paid considerable attention to the problem of being. Being is identified by Plato with the world of ideas that are authentic, untangible, and eternal. Aristotle makes a significant contribution to the development of the doctrine of being. In 18th, 19th centuries, Hobbes developed a purely materialist and mechanic model of the world as matter in motion. And Descartes, in his dualistic philosophy, regarded being as split into two opposite substances, material and spiritual. And Hegel, he reasoning of being is entirely abstract. Forms of being: natural being, man's being, social being, and the spiritual being. The interaction of the material and spiritual being gives way to subject or a human, a creature with a material base body and the human consciousness capable of the active attitude to life with the idea to meet the various demands. For Aristotle, also being is what is anything. Whenever Aristotle explains the meaning of being, he does so by explaining the meaning of the Greek verb to be. Human's being presupposes his existence in the world of things. He himself, as a being with a philosophical body, represents a thing in a philosophical sense. Ontology and the category of being. Ontology, Latin ontologia, from the ancient Greek word. Ontos is existence and logos is the doctrine. Since is the doctrine of the fundamental principles of existence, worth being, that is nature, society, man. The basic question of ontology: what exists? The formation of philosophy began precisely with the study of problems of being. In being, two types of realities are distinguished: objective and subjective. Objective reality is that and independently of the consciousness. Subjective reality is all that person and can is the world of mental states, the world of consciousness, the spiritual world of man. Basic forms of being: the being of nature, the being of man, the being of spiritual, the being of social. The being of nature: in this case, the first and the second nature are distinguished. The first nature is the being of nature, which existed before the appearance of man. The best for heaters, for atmosphere, and so on. The second nature, it is the being on things, of things and processes created by man or nature transformed by man. The being of man. In this form stands out the being of man in the world of things and his own human being. First one, the being of man in the world of things. Here, a person is regarded as a philosophical and biological object, subject to the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology, and human being. Here, a person is no longer regarded as an object, but as a subject that obeys not only the laws of nature, but also exists as a social and a spiritual, moral human being. And then, being of the spiritual is the spirit of the ideal, the concurrentness of man and his unconcurrence, is in which one can distinguish. First one, individualized spiritual, and the second one, objective spiritual. Being of the social, which is divided into uh, first one, the being of an individual as a social subject, the career of social relation, and the qualities in public life and in the progress of history. Second one, the being of society itself. And being of social is based on the economic life of society.